Welcome, everybody, to the Work Hard, Play Hard podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Harding. We're going to talk here today with Boo Maddox. We're excited to have him on this show here today. He is, he's done a lot of things here. So in the last couple of years, he's sold 350 units. Okay, that's a lot. That's a lot of homes. In fact, it translates into about $130 million worth of real estate. Okay. He owns a couple businesses. One is called Mad Cash. It is with social media marketing and different things.
Content
like
creation.
Content creation.
Yeah, I'm trying to keep that as the emphasis, which is content creation, because we don't do ads, we don't do advertising. We want to focus with people that want to have a focus on their own personal brand.
Perfect. Content creation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Awesome. Okay. On a personal level, he is married, has 3 kids, and his wife's a little involved in his businesses too. It sounds like.
Very involved. If you're listening to this, babe, I said very. He's the one that said a little.
We are grateful to have him on the show. I'm not going to counter that, so I don't want to get no marital problems here. So we're gonna so talk to us. Tell us about you. Who as far as how you got into real estate. I know obviously your dad's in real estate, so was that hey, I have to go into real estate because dad's in real estate, or tell us your story. How did that going to start?
Yeah, I like to say that I had a choice, right? And I think if you were to ask my dad, he definitely gave me and my siblings a choice. But like I told you, kind of when we were talking a little bit at the beginning, I've been running around this same building since I was literally 8 or 9 years old, right? I remember a lot of the OGs, if you want to call them that were in this building that they got licensed and then they came here and this was kind of their first landing spot, right? People that are pillars within the real estate community. So
all started in this building.
Right. There's a lot of big name people that have started in this building, right? Yeah. And I had the unique opportunity, the unique privilege to be 10 years old and 12 years old and running around and them kind of being like the cool big brothers to me.
Sure.
Right. So I absolutely had a choice, went and served the LDS mission, came home, and I started at First Colony Mortgage, right? Not trying to talk about competition or anything like that, but was working with Corey Shelley over there, and that was kind of my first jump into real estate, right? And it was something that was far enough removed from the family business, but still close enough that we could talk about it at Sunday dinner and wreck all of our personal family time with talking about work.
Sure.
Originally, the plan was to go to school. Originally, the plan was to go to college, probably try to become an attorney or something like that, right? I wanted to have a nice degree on my wall like I had seen a lot of successful people do. So while I was doing mortgages, went to school, tried to enroll twice, went for the first 3 days, and then just stopped. And I couldn't get myself to go, right? Just couldn't do it. So eventually I said, okay, I'm going to jump into this. I was starting to really pick up the mortgages and really starting to enjoy it a little bit. Once we kind of got through that phase of my life of what am I doing, I jumped into mortgages full time and started to really do really well at it. And then got the call from my dad. We were sitting there hanging out one night and he said, hey, come and sell for me. So that was about 5 or 6 years ago. May will be, I think, the start of my 6th year here at Edge. And it's been all gas, no brakes since then. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So not you feel good about that change? I mean, going from lending to real estate, that was a good choice.
Yeah, it was for me at least. I think because I did have that opportunity to see everything from the beginning, right?
Sure.
Even at Edge, my first job there wasn't as a sales agent. My first job there was moving furniture, right? Like I said, okay. I moved the furniture from my dad out of this building into the one that he's in currently, right? That was, he always made it very, very clear to us that if we were going to be doing anything that was a higher paying position within the company, we were going to start out at not a high paying position within the company. Yeah. And so
do your dues.
Yeah, right. Very much so. He was very much like a pay your dues, and even though we fought about it at times growing up,
of course,
it was definitely something that was good for me because the appreciation that I had coming into the business, I knew that the other opportunity for me was digging sign holes in the winter, and I didn't want to go back to that. Yeah. So I definitely took it more seriously than probably a 23 or 24-year-old kid would have when I started switching, or when I made that switch originally.
And I'm guessing having done lending a little bit probably helps you be a better realtor too, I guess. You understand kind of more of the full transaction too, I guess. Is that fair to say? Or?
No, absolutely. Yeah, that's what I love about kind of what my path has been, is that nothing has been wasted time.
Sure.
Right. I've been able to pull things from everything that I've done to bring to doing what I'm doing currently. Right. So whether it wasn't even necessarily I could pre-qualify them on the spot because we have great partners that we work with that and more than that, there's a lot of really good loan officers out there, and I want to let them do what they're really good at and focus
Sure.
on what I'm really good at, which is helping people feel comfortable about what they're purchasing. But as we all know, a big portion of that is feeling comfortable with a monthly payment, feeling comfortable. And so I think that's what my biggest advantage was okay, I could take this purchase price and say, okay, this is what your monthly payment is, ballpark, right?
Sure.
We'll have you talk to a lender.
Yeah.
But this is roughly what that will get you in purchasing power. Where does that monthly payment feel in the budget that you guys have set?
Sure.
So I think if nothing else, it probably also gave me some credibility, because like I said, when I started, I was 24 years old. I looked like I was 24 years old. Sure. and people would walk into the model home and they're looking to make the biggest purchase of their lives,
like,
and they have a kid. Yes, yeah, they have a kid sitting across from them. So super grateful for the time that I did have in lending, because it if nothing else, it gave me some credibility, and it allowed me to know what I was talking about just a little bit more and help facilitate that process better, for sure.
Okay, I like that. So now you're at Edge Homes, right? You've been there. You said 6 years.
May will be the start of 6 years. Yeah.
Okay, start of 6 years. Okay. So tell us about Edge Homes. What's your role there right now? What you said you've had
sales
multiple
agent.
roles. Okay,
Yep, sales agent. Yeah.
Okay. So selling the homes.
Yep. So I represent the builder in the transaction. Wow. Let's cut that out. I represent the builder. No. Yeah. So I represent the builder in the transaction. My job is to help make it as smooth of a process as possible for both the agent on the buyer side and the buyer.
Okay. And so what? Okay. Well, so let's. Obviously, it's a weird market right now, right?
Very. Yeah.
So, what advice do you have for people that are building a home right now? I mean, like what?
There's not a ton of advice I can give to people that are in the process of building a home, but I think that if you are at the beginning, my biggest piece of advice would nail down what is important to you before you go in the door and start getting your eyes really, really big at what all of the options are, right? That's what we are really having to work with people, I think, more than ever before is, okay, what is at the top of your list? Because we're not going to be able to accommodate your entire list anymore, sure. Right? If you had came in and your budget was $600,000 for a single family 3 or 4 years ago when I first started, that was a very healthy budget in most of our communities. Yeah. Now that's going to be pushing the townhome budget, right? And so figure out exactly what's going to be important to you, and then as somebody that represents a builder, find yourself a very good buyer's agent that is very, very knowledgeable in the industry, because there's a lot of things that builders are doing right now that are not always in the best interest of buyers.
Okay.
Did I say that politically correct enough?
Yeah, you can say, yeah. And do you want to elaborate on that, or?
Yeah, and I'm not saying anything I don't think that's out of turn or that people couldn't turn on the news and see, right? Sure. But you're seeing contracts being canceled, and I don't necessarily blame the builder either, right?
Sure.
We all see what inflation is doing. That
puts them in an awkward position, right? I can't make any money on this house. I got to cancel this, right?
Correct. There are some builders that you see that are doing that, and I don't know that they have much of a choice. I'm not the one that gets into their books on why they're threatening to cancel contracts and increase prices, but that can be detrimental to a buyer. I mean, you see this all the time when buyers come in and they say, hey, 550 is my max. Yep. If all of a sudden the builder says it's now $575, those buyers are kind of left in a really tough spot. What do they do with that extra $25,000, right? Yep. And so finding a really, really good buyer's agent, you guys have had a handful of them on the show already that I've watched, and I've actually worked with a lot of them. They know all of these things. They know a lot of those things that could potentially be harmful to you as a buyer. Find one that you feel comfortable with, find one that you trust, find one that you jive with, and kind of go from there and see a couple of different builders and find a couple of those guys that actually have your best interests at heart.
Okay. What does Edge, how is Edge doing as far as building homes and stuff like that? A lot of developments and stuff like that. They're still finding land, I mean, like as far as just from a healthy economy standpoint, I mean, like they're not running out of land to build on or anything.
No, and that's a really, really good question, and that's actually what my dad's main focus is at Edge, right? Is all land acquisition. And so everything that he's working on today is stuff that we won't be selling for another 3 or 4 years, right? Currently in front of us, I hope this isn't proprietary information, but we have about 4,000 to 6,000 lots in the hopper ready to go and that are ready to be developed, right? So we have plenty of land, we have plenty of units coming. Having said that, there's still a massive inventory shortage that isn't going away anytime soon, right? So we're fortunate that the communities that we are involved in are big projects, right? 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 units. They're huge, yeah. And so we're not going anywhere anytime soon, but it is going to get tougher for some of these smaller builders, I think, that have 15 to 20 lots in places like Lehigh, American Fork, Saratoga Springs even is getting very, very competitive, right?
Yeah. Which, it Yeah, it's a crazy market right now.
Yeah, and there's not another word to describe it, but the tough part is, I mean, do you see it ending anytime soon?
No, I don't, unfortunately. I mean, obviously interest rates have come up, and so that's making it so some people can no longer qualify, right? You know, for a home and stuff like that. But there's still plenty of demand out there.
Yeah, and that's what's driving this, right? Is the demand on it. If you look, interest rates going up isn't going to change that demand.
Yeah.
That demand still exists.
Correct.
Right? So I think all that you're going to see is people changing what their budgets are. They're going to just lower their budgets, right? Because that's if they could afford $600,000 with where interest rates were 30 days ago, now it might realistically be $450 to $475 with the higher interest rate.
We're just pushing people further out into some of these, you know, cheaper areas, right? You know, not the core area, but maybe, you know, further out into smaller towns and stuff like that.
I think
that's areas, I guess.
Yeah, and I think that's also going to be part of the balancing act that Utah has to go through in the next 5 years, right? Growing up, it wasn't crazy for people to feel like they could live 15 or 20 minutes away from their office. When you talk to people that are moving here from California, that are moving here from back east, that's unrealistic for most people.
Sure.
Right? Most people are having to live 45 minutes to an hour away, and I'm not saying that we're close to that, but all of a sudden, Eagle Mountain, which is 45 minutes away from Salt Lake,
doesn't look too bad anymore. You know.
It's been very interesting to show places like that to people like me that grew up in Highland and Alpine and nicer and areas on the east side that can't afford now.
Yeah.
So now it's like, okay, Eagle Mountain is kind of my best bet, but that feels a ways away from everybody. Versus when you take somebody from California there and they're getting a big lot with a big house for under $1 million. Yeah. They're 30 to 40 minutes away from their job, 20 minutes if they're living in Lehigh, and they feel really, really good about that. To them, that feels like a massive step forward.
I agree with that. Anything else on you know, building a home? You know, any other advice or any, you know, before I kind of leave that area, but any other things on the, you know, the status of the market, building homes, stuff like that you would talk about?
I think my biggest pet peeve right now that I just can't get over is people saying that they're just going to wait, and people that are just saying that they're going to save. Right, the numbers, and I'm not a mathematician. Like I said, I dropped out of school a couple of times because I kept thinking it was for me, and I realized it wasn't when they sent me back to Math 960, I think is what they did.
Like, never mind. Maybe this isn't for me.
But conservatively, in these locations that we're talking about, right, what we would all call an A location, it's not going to be crazy, I think, to see an 8 to 12% appreciation for the next 2 to 3 years. Yeah. So realistically, you're looking at 30%. My average purchase price on all my sales in 2021 was right around $550. So in 2022, you're going to add $55,000 to that, and then you're going to add $60,000 in 2023, and then potentially, right, depending on where the market goes, which we still have that shortage that we've talked about. Yeah. If you're not able to save that $50,000 to $60,000 a year, you are losing money by waiting. Yeah. And I think that message needs to get out there to more and more people, because people don't understand the reality of that. Sure.
There's an actual cost to wait.
There absolutely is, and it's really, really hard, and there's always a price point which I feel like is getting used and abused, right? I feel like 2 years ago it was like $650,000. People felt like it should get them a McMansion, and it didn't, right? That was kind of your starter home price. Yeah. Right now, I think that price point from like $550 to $600 is where people feel like they should be able to get at least a nice starter home, right? Something to begin, and we're the ones having to break the news to them that, hey, that's townhome pricing at this point. Yeah. Right? So I just, as we continue to see prices go up, you're going to see more and more people get priced out. And once again, going back to that idea of waiting, nobody wants to talk about this, but what has rents been doing the exact same amount for the same amount of time? Correct. Yeah. Right? You've seen rents go up in the Wasatch Front anywhere from 15 to 20% almost every other year at this point. Yeah. I don't know what you do other than buy, lock in your price, get going. Even if you want to be quote unquote house poor, right? You have to do something, because staying in your parents' basement isn't going to make it easier to buy a house in a year or two.
Well, I agree with that, and I think one of the problems we have is that, and everybody's memory is 07, 08 when things crashed, right? And so they're like, oh, it's going to happen again, because I remember that. I remember it crashing, and things are different. It's very different,
But you were in the industry.
Right? I was in the industry there.
So if I offered the night before, right? The night before everything started to drop, right? All the numbers said pricing went down about 30 to 35%, right? Yeah. That was about the fallout, give or take. Yeah. If I offered you the opportunity right now to buy 10 houses at pricing the night before the peak, knowing that tomorrow they're going to crash 30%, what would you say right now?
Back then, I would say no.
Back then, you would say no. Today, you would say absolutely,
Of
because
course.
it is a significant discount versus what I would sell them to you at today's pricing.
Correct.
Right. So that's the tricky part, is if we do continue to go up 10 to 15% a year, which in Utah, that's what all the numbers are saying.
Yeah.
Even if we do have another, right, in that 2008, 2009, I was a kid, but I still remember what my dad's expression was when he would come home from work.
Sure.
If you see that pricing going up, that 10 to 15% a year, let's talk about another 30 to 40%. Even in that worst case scenario, you're still looking at buying it what today's price is currently. Yeah. It's not a discount to buy at that time versus where you're at today, assuming that everything continues to move forward like all the numbers say it will.
Yeah. No, that's very good advice. I hope everybody heard all this, some really good information on building home, the market, different things like that. Heed that, because we've been talking about that for a long time. Cost of waiting is real, and it is hard, because I've seen several people several years ago that couldn't afford what they, and it's like, oh, I should have been able to buy is the thought. And obviously, anyhow, it's sad. So, and we want everybody to be able to buy a home. I think home ownership is a very good thing for everybody. So let's switch gears here a little bit. So, still in the real estate thing and stuff like that, but let's talk more personally about you. What do you attribute, obviously, when I started this podcast, or started at the beginning of this podcast, all the different things you've done, obviously a lot of, units sold, different things like that. What do you attribute your success to? Why, how have you become successful there? I mean, what is the secret sauce there for you?
That's a loaded question. I think that the family tie has to be talked about, obviously, right?
Okay.
I think I have definitely had advantages by being able to brush shoulders with absolute icons within the industry here in Utah.
Yeah.
But I think I also love what I do.
Okay.
And that has been huge for me. And I think if anybody has gone through that buying process with me, regardless on how the process went, if you felt like it went smooth or not, nobody would say that I didn't love what I was doing. Okay. And I think that gets lost sometimes, especially when you're in a commission and a fast-paced job. People are so focused on what's coming next that they forget to enjoy the time today.
Sure.
Right? They forget to enjoy what they're doing.
Sure.
And I think that if nothing else, what that has allowed me to do is do everything that I can to get better today so that I can be better and have that same opportunity tomorrow. Okay. And I think that's anybody that's trying to get into the industry, that would be a big piece of advice, is figure out how to get better every single day.
I love that. And enjoy what you do, I guess, too, right? I mean,
and don't get me wrong, there is a lot of this job that I absolutely don't like doing.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't like doing paperwork. I don't like doing some of the stuff that comes with selling that many units, but that's just part of it, right? But
sure.
but doing what you can to maximize your time in doing the things that bring you joy, right? To quote Marie Kondo. Well, I felt bad. You had Adrian on last week, and he was quoting all sorts of books.
Vince Lombardi, I know.
I'm like, Gary Vee says to post 3 TikToks a day, right? Like that's kind of what that was about. All the advice that's about where my quotes stop. But figure out what brings you joy, and then figure out how to outsource some of the stuff that doesn't, and build a team, right? You've obviously done that, and instead of focusing on how to produce a podcast, right, you said, okay, I can host, I can have this conversation. I'm not going to focus on the production, because I'm going to focus on the production.
The volume. Sure. Yeah. Hey, I like that. I like that. Yeah, that's right. I like that. Okay. Well, obviously you've done very well, and I like that. Your dad's a good guy. I know your dad, and that's good to acknowledge that. But I mean, that's only one part of it, right? I mean, the other part of it is you have to love what you do, and obviously you've worked hard and done what you've done, and you're standing on your own legs, right? I mean, I think that's something to be admired.
And I appreciate that. It's something that I really fought, right?
Sure.
For the first little bit, my time in the industry I felt like that was something that was always hanging over my head, right? Kind of a scarlet A on my chest. I've said that a couple of different times to people.
Yeah.
But when you can acknowledge where you came from, it does get a lot easier to, right? We all have those different things. Mine just happens to correlate directly because my dad was an agent. I'm an agent. But we all have that, right? We all have different things that we were given, things that we were born with, things that were taught to us that will help us do better. Right, that will help us be better than we were
and
yesterday.
What do you do with that, right?
Not only what do you do with that, but can you acknowledge that? Can you be open to that? Can you? And it took me a really, really long time to get comfortable with. I call them my daddy issues, but it's not that, right? That's just like a good label to put on it. But can we get comfortable with where we came from, and not let it define who we are, both in a negative and a positive way, right? If your parents were really, really successful, you have more to prove now.
Yeah.
If your parents weren't, then be an example to your kids or be an example to that next generation, right?
Yeah.
That we all have things that we came from.
Love that, actually. Hey, good job. Yeah. Talk to us about, so you have veered off a little bit from real estate as far as, you have other businesses going on, right?
Business.
Business. Okay.
Yeah.
Business. Okay. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I want to make that very clear. Like with what we're about to talk about, it was not. I've had a few people ask me that are close to me, like if I'm trying to get out of real estate, if it's my goal to get out of real estate, I absolutely still love this. The passion is still there. The fire is still there. I very much enjoy what I'm doing. Having said that, I've taken a mistress, right? There is something that I have found that has been very, very enjoyable, right? And my process in real estate has been just a little bit different, right? We were talking about this a little bit in the, do you call it a pre-show?
Yeah, pre-show. Yeah.
In the pre-show. But I was talking about this in the pre-show. My main focus has been trying to help real estate agents sell more houses, right? So all of the marketing and all of the outreach that I have done has been focused on buyer's agents, right?
Okay.
So of those 350 houses that I sold in the last 2 years, I would say 345 of those all were represented by a buyer's agent, right? The other 5 that I found were probably 2 of my siblings, a cousin, right? But people that I know.
Majority are buyers agents. So you like buyers agents. You work with them. And
Edge works with them, but then that's my sole focus. So I don't sit model homes. I don't sit around and wait for those leads to come in. What I realized a couple of years ago, and what Edge has been amazing in allowing a handful of us Edge agents to go out and do, is say, hey, there is a massive buyer pool right now that are represented by some fantastic buyers agents. Can we as a builder go and network with them and help bring them in and say, hey, we have all of this inventory that we talked about earlier. Let me help you sell some houses. And so my focus has shifted a little bit from, okay, can I sell this house, to viewing the buyer's agent as my client now, right? The buyer, as far as I'm concerned, is the buyer's agent client, and it's Edge's client. The buyer's agent is who my client is. Did I say that correctly?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, the buyer and the buyer's Edge's client, the buyer's agent is mine. That's who I am working with. That's who my focus is. And so I kind of went through this transition process of bring me buyers, to how can I help you? How can I help you sell more houses? How can I create value for you outside of just selling Edge homes?
Sure.
Right. So there's been times where I know people have used me to shop against. There are times where I know that buyers agents have brought buyers through just to help check it off, and then they go buy resale. And that used to really frustrate me because I felt like I was being used and abused. Yeah. Until I got to the point where it's like, no, let's figure out how to start creating value. And so this Mad Cash Media that we're going to talk through just a little bit was they say necessity is the mother of all innovation. Adrian can tell us who said that, I'm sure. But innovation came because I felt like I needed to. Right, and it was all based around that idea of how can I create value for people.
Sure. And so tell us about, content creation. So tell us what the business does then. So the business is,
Yeah, so the business is this. I was sitting on a beach in Hawaii last May, and I was feeling really, really good about myself. Not physically, because I definitely didn't post any pictures of me on the beach.
No beach bod.
Correct. But I was staying at the nicest hotel in the nicest room for 10 days with my wife, and the money side of it didn't matter to me. Right? I didn't care if we had to spend $4 for a pina colada. Like I was feeling really, really
Life
good.
Was good.
Very much so. And I realized, okay, I need to start to automate this a little bit. And I had hired my own personal TC or assistant to help process a lot of the paperwork and the stuff that I didn't want to. But I had to figure out a way to, I don't want to say shortcut. A lot of people use shortcut as like a negative term. So if you hear me use it, I think it's a positive thing. I wanted to figure out how to shortcut my realtor outreach just a little bit. And the way that I was going to do that was by posting more on social media. But as anybody in our industry or any industry has come to find out, if you're really, really good at what you do, if you're really good at doing lending, if you're really good at selling houses, and you're not very good at doing content creation, you're going to get burned out on it very, very quickly. And I had started trying to do it a couple of times, but I got really, really frustrated because it would take me 2 or 3 hours to put together a stupid reel. It would take me a handful of hours to put together a video about our upcoming releases. And so
that's the time I could be selling real estate.
Correct, right? In 2020, I sold a house every 36 hours for the entire year straight. So if I was going to take 4 to 6 hours to create content for a day, I legitimately felt like it was costing me a deal. And the argument for me was always, okay, well, if I can put out social media content and then get a sale from it, it was worth it. Well, I was like, well, I'm already getting the sale, so why do I need to be doing this?
Fair question.
And kind of the last 2 years when I had really started to hit those numbers, a big reason why I was able to hit that level of production was because I think I got really good at staying in my lane and doing the things that I was good at and kind of outsourcing some of the stuff that I was not good at, which was the paperwork, which was chasing emails, which was a lot of that stuff that would bog me down and take time away. So I for the first time in my life, that was when I kind of had to run my own business, if you want to look at it like that. And so I made a couple of hires. I hired 1 or 2 individuals to come and just create content for us. And it worked, but I realized really, really quickly, I don't have 8 hours of content a day. So I started calling these different agents and these different people that I was working with, and I said, hey, if I made some new construction content for you, right? Come into our model home, I'll make some new construction content for you, it's on my dime. Would you say yes? And everybody said yes. So we started just filling up these kids' schedule that I was working with, creating content. I was like, okay, there's something here. And so our entire focus is content creation without people having to actually work with creators, which can get frustrating at times. Right? It can be tough. It can be kind of difficult to work with. But the entire premise is people that have brands, people that have content, just that don't have the ability to create it. I want to give you the ability to create it.
And that's been going well.
It's been going really, really well. And I think that there's kind of 2 sides to it. There's a ton of brands, a ton of entrepreneurs, a ton of individuals that feel like that we're in the same spot I was, which was I'm at the top of my game. I'm doing really, really well within my industry, but I don't have the ability to take time away from what I'm doing to create content on a consistent basis.
Because again, you're giving up, like, because you already know you're worth so much, not in an arrogant way, but like in a, hey, I can make money doing this. I already know I can do it. So why switch and spend time doing, something that I don't know if I can make money at?
For sure. And so the other side of it was I'm 28. The generation I think that I am a part of grew up consuming content. We grew up with the first time ever, really, the ability just to scroll through our phones for hours on end and have content piece after content piece after content piece. And so we all became very, very good at consuming. Well, there's another generation that's coming up below us, these kids that are 17, 18, and 19 years old that grew up with it being flipped, saying, okay, I want to be creating content. And so we have had, Jordan, how many kids do we have now? Is there 7 of you, 8 of you?
7 to 8.
Yeah. So now we have 8 full-time creators on staff that all specialize in different things. Jordan's unbelievable. He joined us in January. Jordan's been putting out up to 3 pieces of content a day for me. And it has been easy, right? So once again, going back to what we were talking about a little bit earlier, which was stay in your lane, stay good at what you are good at, and put the majority of your time and focus into that. We'll handle the content creation side, and it's these kids that are just unbelievable at what they do. So they were all working obscure jobs, random jobs, odds and end jobs. And I told them, I said, drop out. Right? Not really. He graduated early, if his parents are listening. But come and work for me, and let's take away you having to schedule. Let's take away you having to work this part-time job up until you get good enough that you can go full-time, and let's see just how good you can get at this. And it has absolutely blown me away at how good these kids, I call them kids, right? Because they're like 10 years younger than me.
But so obviously, you're old now. Come on,
How good these kids are, though, at creating and doing what they're really, really good at. And on the flip side of that, I have been the one that's scheduling it, because you and I can have a conversation about content creation where I would get frustrated at times when I felt like I was talking to the creator saying, hey, this is kind of what I'm thinking. This is just different brains, right? Different brains from an entrepreneur to a creative type person. So it's been a ton of fun, me just scheduling as many shoots and getting in front of as many people as I possibly can and saying, hey, do you want content? And then turning it over to these guys who are just absolutely phenomenal at what they do. So that's kind of the hybrid. We don't do advertising. We're not trying to get into ads. I don't care about Facebook ads. I think Facebook ads are going to start to go away from a lot of people. I think that that's the Band-Aid that a lot of companies have been putting on their social media for years, because that was the only alternative. Right? But this has kind of been my main focus with it, but the difference between branding and advertising, right? Branding versus advertising, they sound the same until you actually break them down. The reason why I am now choosing to invest every extra marketing dollar that I have into branding instead of advertising is because advertising stops the second that your money runs out.
Yeah.
The second that your ad spend is done, it's gone.
Yeah.
Branding, I haven't looked at my phone, but I've probably received another 50 to 20 views on TikToks. I've probably received another 10 or 15 views on Reels just while we've been sitting here, right? So choosing to help people invest that money into branding and giving them the tools to invest into their own personal brands instead of advertising, I think that that's the direction that we're going to start to see a lot more people go in the next 4 to 5 years is personal branding and content creation over advertising.
Yeah, makes sense. I love that. Well, okay. So, sorry, I'm just processing every. I like.
There was a lot
me
there.
Stuff.
There was a lot there.
I like it, so I like kind of learning stuff. I'm like, I should take some notes here. Well, and so I guess going back to that. So, and it's not just real estate people that you're marketing to. I mean, with that business, right? I mean, this is. I think you said restaurants, stuff like that too, right? I mean, other companies are using your content creators, right?
Yeah, we've been kind of filming for a whole bunch of different brands, and originally I was going to stay within real estate, right? Like I said,
of course,
this was not a way for me to jump ship on real estate. I still love it. I probably always will, and I probably will always be selling to some extent.
Yeah.
But this has been a lot of fun, being able to cross lines. Once again, going back to what the status quo has been, people get within one niche and they kind of stick there as far as a creator.
Yeah.
But what people don't understand is that Jordan is going to go from filming a car show to filming a restaurant to filming a listing.
Yeah.
Now, when you go from filming a car show to filming a restaurant to filming a listing, that listing video is going to feel unlike anything else that is out there because we're going to pull some of what we learned from the car shoot into the listing video.
Fair enough. Sure.
Right? And so I almost feel like it's a duty. That's too strong of a word, but I feel like it's a necessity for our content creation company to stay ahead of what other people are putting out. And that's going to be always us crossing lines and pulling from all sorts of different places to make the content feel unlike anything else that's out there.
Love it. So here's a question for you as far as, and I've enjoyed talking to you, what, and I almost maybe could answer this, but what motivates you, I guess, with doing these, I think you have a good drive, right? I mean, and maybe part of it is, obviously dad was successful and stuff like that. So you're like, okay, hey, I've been given a lot here. I want to be successful too, right? What can I do? I mean, and so, but I'll let you answer that question. But I mean, what motivates you? I mean, I guess.
That's a hard question because I don't feel like I'm a motivated person, right? Which I think surprises people when I say that, but this is who I am. It doesn't matter if it's at 2:00 in the afternoon or if it's at 8:00 at night. This is who I am. But I think that what it is for me is that I want to be better than I was yesterday.
Okay.
If I am not better after today than I was yesterday, I'm going to be frustrated. And I think that that's what I expect out of everybody that comes and works for me, is for the content that they're putting out to be better than it was yesterday. And so far it has been. Right? I was talking to one of the kids that very first started with us, and he looked at me and goes, "Hey, I'm done with everything in editing." And I looked at him and I said, "Ben, how are you already done?" And he goes, "I'm a lot better than I used to be." And I said, that is exactly what we need to be having.
Yeah.
Right? Jordan is able to get out 3 pieces of content a day, and he doesn't touch a laptop once.
Wow.
It's unbelievable. He shoots with a camera, and he's now been able to get it to the point now where he can turn out a TikTok in probably 10 minutes. It's just it's absolutely crazy to me.
On his phone, on his what?
I don't know how the hell he does it, Ryan, but he does
He's
it,
got
and
magic.
it ends up posted on my post. So,
Sure.
But I think that that's what it is for me. Is can I be better than I was yesterday, and can I have fun doing it in my way?
Yeah.
Can I have fun? Can I do it in a way that gets me going, right? Can I push to a level that has just never been seen before? Not because I care about doing it for anybody else, but because I want to see if I can get there myself.
Sure.
So I that's a hard question, I think, for me to answer, because I don't have a silver bullet for anybody else. But I think what it comes down to is being very self-aware in what drives you, right? And figuring out what it is that's important to you.
Yeah. Along those same lines, long-term goals for yourself? I mean,
I don't even know anymore. And the reason I heard Adrian say this last week. It's like the 3rd time I brought him up. I sound like a fanboy, but
we'll let him know.
Yeah,
we'll give you his email after.
Thank you, I appreciate that. But last week he said I'm not really a person that like does goals,
okay.
right? Or 2 weeks ago, and I felt that because I'm not necessarily a person that does goals. I think it's been really good because I don't get my wife is very, very good at looking forward and saying, okay, this is what we're going to need to do in order to get to this point, and I want to know, okay, what do I need to do today?
Yeah.
So I think for me, it's just keep pushing in the areas that I want to keep pushing and keep doing it in a way that makes me happy.
Okay.
And outside of that, I think money will follow. I think if it's fame that you're chasing, fame will follow. Like whatever it is that you're chasing, you can go and get it. But I hopefully in 5 years, we're running a successful content creation company that is creating for some of the top brands and some of the top real estate agents out there. Like I said, that's always going to be a portion of what we do, because I love being able to work with some of the top people within this industry, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think they rub off on you, right? You know,
you get better,
you surround
right?
yourself by people that are
iron
good.
sharpens iron.
Yeah,
is kind of the go-to quote for me when it comes to stuff like that, because you will only get better if the people around you are better.
Yeah. Well, Boo, I think you had several good quotes. You know, I know you're worried about that.
Good,
yeah. So, you know, Adrian can, you know, to there you go. Shove it, Adrian. He got a lot of quotes here. No, hey, thanks, Boo, for coming on. Actually, really enjoyed talking to you. I think a lot of good content here as far as, you know, obviously with obviously this business that you've created, and then also going back to real estate as far as homes and what's going on in the market and how we can help people buy homes, right? And, you know, buy or build and stuff. So anyhow, thanks for coming on.
Of course.
Thanks everybody for listening. Like, subscribe, all those things, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.